Sometimes crime does pay the ultimate price. Tonight we bring you tales from the gritty city. Brutal stories from the dirty, dark streets and alleys that are the underbelly of New York, as can only be told by the Hobo. There are times during the hours of darkness, especially after a rain, as I walk down these alleys and back streets that I know so well, and for a moment, just a moment, I stop, close my eyes, take in a deep, stinking breath, and when I open them back up, it's as if all the colors have been drained out of the world, drained right down those filthy, wet gutters. And as I look around, it's like I've stepped back into an old black and white movie. But what kind of picture is it going to be? A comedy? Romance? Nah. It's probably going to be another goddamn drama, just like it is every single day. Of course, lately, the picture that is my life has been tinged with an occasional thrill. But tonight, how will the story play out tonight? It didn't take me long to find out. The shot rang out. The sound of the blast ricocheted back and forth down the alley like an exploding pinball machine. I was close. One light stood out 2 buildings down. It lit up the murky puddles under a back screen door to one of those bodegas you find on every street. I ran towards the light and then quickly dropped behind a dumpster as 2 masked thugs burst through the screen door. They started running down the alley as a third one came out, dragging a dame. This one had something to say.
All you gotta do is be a good little girl and forget we were ever here, and maybe we won't come back.
He had her by the shirt, one hand pinning her up against the door jamb, his gun clutched in the other. 3 buttons on her blouse had popped off, and what she was half bearing was a sight to behold.
Of course,
he was probably licking her up and down with his eyes under that ski mask, dreaming it was his tongue.
If you ask real nice, maybe I'll come back another night. How'd you like that, honey?
Her answer was quick and to the point. She reached up, yanked that mask off his face, and spit in it, which must have shocked him because he paused just long enough. He swung his gun arm back and was about to pistol whip that lovely face when a trash can slammed into his back, sending him and the rest of the garbage splashing down into a lake of dirty alley water. His 2 buddies at the end of the alley heard the crash and started firing wildly. I blended into the alley pretty well, but she stood out like a shining beacon and was about to be put out. I quickly grabbed her and threw us both back into the bodega and slammed the door shut. The human garbage had recovered and was banging on the back door. Then we heard the sirens. They must have heard it too because the banging stopped. About 2 hours later, the cops left. She was still there, all alone. I knocked on the front door window. She was startled, but when she saw it was me, she smiled and opened the door. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to."
"It's okay. I'm glad you came back."
"If you don't mind me asking, why are you still here? I'm sure one of those cops would have taken you home." She smiled. It was a nice smile. The kind of smile that... forget about it.
"This is home. I live upstairs."
"Must be convenient living above where you work."
"I own it. It was my father's shop. When he passed away last year, I got the building and the store." Haven't I seen you in here before?"
"It's possible. I've been in a lot of bodegas." There's that smile again. I have no gift of poetry. All I can say is I liked it, and it stirred something inside of me. "Well, it's pretty late. I don't want to keep you up. Make sure you lock that back door."
"Wait, do you mind? The stairs to the apartment are, outside."
She was scared. She probably walked out of her shop 100 times late at night and didn't think too much about it. But everything was different now. The night seemed just a little bit darker, and the streets just a little bit more seedy. She unlocked the door to a long flight of stairs leading up to her apartment. Then she turned and smiled at me again. "Tell me something. How good of a look did you get at that guy's face?"
"I'll never forget it."
I was afraid she'd say that. If she got that good of a look, he'll know it. And I've seen his type before. He'll be back.
"Look, where are you staying?"
"Wherever I find a dry spot. Don't worry about me."
"Well, I don't have a spare room, but there's a cot in the maintenance room upstairs."
She is afraid. "Lady, you don't even know me."
"I know you saved my life. And my name's Veronica."
Veronica. Even her name sounds like something out of an old movie.
"I may look like somebody who's got it all together. I can be tough. To run a business like this, you gotta be, but that's the first time anything like this has ever happened to me."
"So you're here in this big building all by yourself?"
"My cousin and her husband live on the 3rd floor, but they're out of town. They'll be back in a couple days, but I'd feel a lot better if somebody else was in the building tonight."
"I did say wherever I could find a dry spot. Besides, I got a feeling about tonight." She took me upstairs to the 2nd floor. In a small maintenance room at the top of the stairs was a cot, just like she said.
"I'll get you a blanket and pillow."
"I'll be fine. Don't trouble yourself."
"Don't be silly. It's no trouble."
I can't remember the last time I had an actual pillow for a pillow. She returned with the bedding and said good night, and then turned and slowly walked into her apartment. Before closing the door, she looked out at the hobo standing in her hallway, and in her eyes I saw something I haven't seen in a long time. It was the look of someone that was happy you were there. I heard the click of the door lock and the sound of the little chain slide in its tiny groove. It was going to be a long night. I tossed a blanket on the bed and was about to toss the pillow when I caught the scent. I buried my face into it and breathed in deeply. It smelled like her. She gave me one of her own pillows. I had to tell myself to get your damn head out of the clouds. That kind of life wasn't meant for you. I sat down on the cot and looked around the hallway. Hers was the only apartment on this floor. There was a narrow hallway at this end that ended at a window overlooking the back alley. I moved the cot to the end of the hall by the window. From this point, I could hear if anyone was coming through the back or the front. It's nice that she brought out the bedding, but I wasn't planning on sleeping. And it's a good thing, because at some point in the middle of the night, I heard them. Someone was climbing up the fire escape. At the same time, I heard a slight clicking sound from downstairs, the unmistakable sounds of a lock being picked. There were 2 locks on the front door, and they were having trouble. I'll deal with the 2 on the fire escape. I waited till the first guy got in. It was a small window, so he turned to help his buddy. I slid out of the shadows, noted his position, coiled my right leg, and kicked. It wasn't just any old kick. The thigh bone is the biggest, strongest bone in the body. If you want to break that, you got to hit it at just the right angle. I didn't miss. I've had years of practice. He crumpled like a ton of friggin' bricks, and just as a loud scream started working its way out of his mouth, I shut it with the heel of my foot. That didn't require a fancy angle, just brute force. The only sound he made after that was the sound of his body slumping down the wall to the floor. The second punk was halfway through the window, coming in backwards, and he started scrambling. I slammed an elbow down on his lower back, and there was no muffling that. He screamed like a banshee. The front door. I turned my head as I heard the door at the bottom of the stairs open. I grabbed the cot and bolted for it. He was halfway up, and there was no other way. So I launched off the 2nd floor, riding that cot down like a human landslide. Hot, bloody metal seared my shoulder as 2 bullets ripped through the cot, just as it slammed into him like an avalanche, hurtling him 20 feet to the ground floor. He was either knocked out or he was dead, but I didn't have time to check as a blood-curdling scream tore through the night from inside the apartment. Veronica. There was no time to find a sneaky way in, and the door was locked. There was only one thing to do. It was an old building with sturdy doors, but I focused every bit of power, leaned back and slammed my heel flat just above the knob. That door shattered and blew open with splinters flying like it was hit by a truck. That human piece of garbage from last night was back. Same one I left hanging half out of the window was now crawling through Veronica's with a big damn knife. She was furiously slapping at him, trying to keep him out, but she wasn't strong enough. He was hell-bent on getting revenge, and there was no stopping him, until I picked up the small table next to the door, yelled for Veronica to move, and threw it. Even before the table struck him, I was already moving full speed. When Garbage Man pushed the table aside, I was in his face. He raised his arm and tried to bring that knife down into mine. I caught and gripped his arm, smashed a knee into his stomach, and then jerked that arm and knife down, burying it to the hilt in his own leg. The horrified look in his eyes only lasted half a second. It was quickly interrupted by my elbow bashing into it, like a trip hammer, blowing his head right back through the window. And there he lay, motionless, half on the fire escape, and maybe all out of this world. I didn't even know if he was going to wake up, and I didn't care. Veronica was laying on the floor. I helped her stand up. "Are you all right? Did he cut you?" She said no, and then began to shake. She fell into my arms and hugged me hard, like she never wanted to let go. Honestly, I didn't want her to let go either. We stood like that for a long time in the dark. It began to rain. One of the back alley lights cast a milky amber glow through the room, and the shadow of raindrops from the window slowly danced on the ceiling. Veronica's pretty blonde hair glowed in the dim light as she rested her head on my chest. I could smell it. Sweet girl. She did give me her pillow. The next day, they found 3 bodies in a dumpster at the end of the alley. Maybe they were all dead, maybe not. Doesn't matter. It's still a good place for garbage.